Jim Harbaugh arrived on campus, he took the players that were already there that won 5 games the year before. He had 2 outstanding seasons to start. He implemented his recruiting approach, which upgraded the recruiting. I don't want to say considerably because Brady Hoke recruited well, but he did upgrade it to a certain extent and put it right on that top 10 line, right in that range. But then the performance on the field dwindled here in the last couple of seasons, especially, of course, in 2020. So the recruiting's not broken. And even in this, and we talked about it with all the negative news and all the negative slant and angles that we've had to drudge through over the last several months. And I apologize for this, Justin. Ever since we got you on here, that's all we talked about is negative stuff concerning Michigan football. But the one positive is that with all that going on and with Jim Harbaugh seemingly 1 foot out the door, at least that's what I'm sure the opponents in the Big Ten wanted to tell recruits, that they still salvaged the number 9 class in the nation. So they got something going for them with Harbaugh leading both an older coaching staff and now this newer one.
Yeah, it is really pretty impressive to see what he was able to put together there. I mean, you would have thought that they would take a dip at – I mean, how many weeks in a row did we come on and say, all right, what's new with Jim Harbaugh? We don't know. Nobody knew what was going on, and I assume that many of those recruits were feeling the same. You know, I'm sure they were having some behind-the-scenes conversations, but it still wasn't very clear to them. So it was pretty incredible. So if Michigan can build on that with these new coaches that are coming in that seem to be a little better on the recruiting trail, then it'll be interesting to see. Can they get up from a top 9 recruiting class to a top 5 recruiting class? And the more important question, what difference does that make? You and I, Mark, were talking right before we came on here. Is that what's really going to push Michigan over the edge? Or do they need to do something different with player development, on-field coaching, things like that? I think that's where the bigger issues have been. So it'll be interesting to see how those coaches pan out. But I still think, to your point before we came on, having 5 stars is not a bad thing. Having really high 4 stars is not a bad thing. And that's what they're adding right now. So if you add the talent, it's a lot easier to make the in-game coaching go well when you have the talent on the field to start with, right?
I haven't built the spreadsheet to completely break this down, but I got to say, Justin, that if you compare to Ohio State and Michigan's talent, I don't think there's a substantial gap, a huge gap, but I think there's a decided gap. It's measurable. But I also think that there's a gap. Again, if we went Urban Meyer / Jim Harbaugh, something in that range of the last 7, 8 years, 9 years, that you would see more Chase Young, Jeffrey Okudah, top elite end of the top end of the NFL draft player for Ohio State than for Michigan.
Yeah, you know what's been interesting that between Ohio State and Michigan, especially when you look at the quarterback position specifically, and just a lot of those players, is Michigan for some reason has guys that don't play super well in school at Michigan, but go on to play pretty dang well in the NFL. Ohio State somehow does the opposite, where they are unbelievable in school at the college level and then sometimes don't pan out, especially at the quarterback level. I mean, they haven't had a quarterback pan out in the NFL in how long now? You know, it's been ever, right?
Basically ever.
Right.
They really have no good quarterbacks in the NFL.
It's really incredible.
Position by position, they have flooded the NFL with guys that then turned out to be good NFL players at every position. The quarterback's been atrocious at Ohio State at the next level.
Which is amazing because what do they have year after year? They have quarterbacks that are breaking records at the quarterback position. So, which is why I think a lot of NFL scouts are skeptical about Justin Fields as well. So we'll see how that pans out too. But yeah, I think I agree with you. The gap between Michigan and Ohio State, it hasn't, yes, there's a significant gap, but it hasn't been something that's like, oh, wow, that is why Ohio State wins by a huge margin every year. Or that's why, I mean, the gap that we see from year to year in the recruiting does not translate to 18 out of 20, years of winning that football game for the Buckeyes, right? there's something else that's going on, and it seems to be the edge that Ohio State comes into that game with, or that they're training for it all year round. There's more to it than just the recruiting. Obviously, the recruiting, when you have a Chase Young on the defensive line, it's pretty easy to get to the quarterback. And when you have a Justin Fields at quarterback, it's really easy to make those guys, to make those plays. But you also then have a Chris Olave who has been unbelievable for Ohio State, better than probably any Michigan receiver in the past 10 years or so. And he was a 3-star, so that's where there's something different that's going on there. And it'll be interesting to see how Michigan takes that all into consideration with this new coaching staff. Are they trying to instill something that's different about Michigan now, that they're going to have a chip on their shoulder at all times? They're going to have an edge. They're training for that Thanksgiving weekend game against Ohio State every single day of the year now. So I think that's what Jim Harbaugh's plan is with this younger coaching staff. With a guy like Mike Hart, who's played and won that game before, he can bring something back to that and say, here's how we did it. Here's how we played. Here's how we practiced. Here's how we trained every single day. But it'll be interesting how also Jim Harbaugh, who's late 50s, how does he work with a younger coaching staff on a day-to-day level as well? Is he the CEO type? Is he getting in there every single day? He's now apparently the quarterback's coach as well. Is he being more hands-on because he was pretty hands-off for the past 3 years? All of this factors into a very interesting spring season for Michigan, which we still don't know what is going to happen there. But it'll be interesting with the quarterback competition, with new coaching staff on both sides of the ball. It'll be really interesting to see how it all pans out for Michigan this spring going into 2021.
And so, folks, while we try to steer away from merging Ohio State and Michigan in every discussion and just realize that Ohio State plays 11 other games and Michigan plays 11 other opponents, and they're running their own separate football operations, I'm sure this is just one of about 47 previews we'll give you before they actually step on the field, hopefully in 2021.
Yeah, exactly. We'll by the time we get to Michigan Ohio State week, we might not have anything else to talk about because we've gone over it all. But hey, you know what? I know a lot of people, and myself and yourself included, that could talk Michigan Ohio State pretty much every week of the year. Rivalry games, especially in the college football world, are about as fun as it gets. So, especially as we know more about the actual players playing in these games and to see who comes out as Ohio State's quarterback, who comes out as Michigan's quarterback. It'll be really fun to talk about that and watch it all unfold come. It'll be really fun for Ohio State fans, maybe. I don't know about Michigan fans, how much fun they'll have, but maybe this is the year. You'll never know.
It's going to happen sometime.
One of these years.
Guaranteed.
Never know when, but one of these years. It may be this year, it may be 20 years down the road, but one of them, it's going to happen, right?